There's my baby.
I'm Dana Denha.
And I'm Jill Andrews, filling in for Melissa Bondi. And this is Adventures in Parenthood. Throughout this series, we will explore the world of raising kids from newborn through adulthood.
Online safety is something our own parents didn't have to worry about much. But in today's climate, it is a very real concern with kids younger and younger perusing the internet, and specifically YouTube. There are plenty of topics you don't want your kids to see and learn about online. As parents, we have to be proactive. But before we get into that, let's learn a little bit more about our interim co-host, Jill Andrews. So Jill, you have a 5-year-old son. He just turned 5.
Yeah,
Nathan.
Recently. His name's Nathan. He's quite a special being. You know, my whole pregnancy and this whole parenting thing has been a very unique experience for me. Starting with the fact that I didn't know I was pregnant until I was 7.5 months pregnant.
Which is just, I can't even believe you didn't know.
You know, I get the same reaction from everybody, and a part of me was in denial. And you know, 7 weeks later I had him, and my life changed. So, you know, and I embrace it, and, you know, wasn't expecting it, and Nathan is truly a gift, and you know, he's different from other kids because he has a neurological disorder. It's a genetic thing, and it's called Pelizaeus-Merzbacher's disease. But he still can laugh, and he can still play, and he goes to school, and, you know, I embrace him, and we love him just as much as we would if he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, he's such a beautiful little boy, and you can see, like, spending time with him personally, I was telling you that when your dad walked into the room, and you could just tell, like, Nathan just, like, lit up when he sees your dad. Like, he just, you can feel those special relationships that he has with people, and I just found that to be really special. And it's funny because we are talking about cybersecurity sort of stuff, and Nathan actually, a lot of the stuff he does is like watching videos online. And
Sure, yeah, no, he's definitely addicted to YouTube.
As are a lot of kids.
So yeah, no, that's been a helpful tool in my parenting adventure. You know, and what we let him watch is, you know, very innocent, and he's okay with it. So
yeah, he's not perusing himself on there where, like, with my own personal, I was just talking about this earlier with you, how all of a sudden Keaton's on YouTube and she's watching these weirdo videos where babies are playing with dolls. And I'm like, how did you, first of all, how did YouTube know this is what you wanted to watch? Because you're not typing anything in, and this video is basically like, how did you two connect? I don't know how it happened. And then once they get on there, it's like, you know, it just opens up this wormhole of like all these other videos that are very similar to that.
And, you know, kids are so impulsive, they just, you know, they see something that they want to watch just based on, like, you know, a little image on the screen, and, you know, they fall down that wormhole. And
yeah.
If you don't keep on it, you know, it could take them someplace that you aren't okay with, so.
Yeah, and a lot of these videos, because I've obviously never seen any of these things before in my life, because I would never watch a video about kids playing with dolls. They have like 70 million hits, so it's like, it's not like she's the only kid watching this stuff. Obviously, other kids are watching these too, because, and probably watching them multiple times, I would assume, because I feel like I've seen her watching these videos, like the same one, like
over
30
and over.
times.
Yeah.
Well, we actually have some guests joining us to fill us in on it. Why don't you tell us about our guests?
So joining us today is Carol Matthews and Robin Batten, cybersecurity facilitators with the Washtenaw Area Council for Children. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So can you tell us a little bit about the program in general, because you are actually teaching parents about cybersecurity and keeping their kids safe, and it's probably info I personally do need to know.
So our program started about 10 years ago, and it was geared toward teenage girls because they were leaving with online predators, meeting guys on the internet, then leaving with them. So it was, the goal was to protect them, to teach them not to leave with online predators. But as a result of working with a particular group of girls, we learned about the cyberbullying, the sexting, and then we started talking about their digital reputation and ways to protect themselves. So that's how it got started a few years, yeah, about 10 years ago. And we were one of 5 in the nation to receive a federal grant to do the program in Washtenaw County. So yeah, that's how it initially got started. And our program, we go into every school district. We're in every school district throughout the county. And our goal from grade 3 all the way through 12. And our goal is to teach them how to protect themselves, teach them what they call netiquette, how to behave themselves online, their manners, basically, how not to be rude, how not to bully, what the do's and don'ts, basically. And just to give them those strategies, you know, those critical thinking skills about what they're encountering and how to handle certain things like bullying, or if they get a sexting picture. That's what our goal is. Or if someone has contacted them and it's unwanted contact, or they're not sure who it is. So that's the basis of it, but we also have the parent component. You know, in addition to educating the students, we find it very important to educate the parents as well. A lot of times it's kind of hard to get parents in the audience, but we do, and we do it in several ways, not just parent groups. Sometimes we get a chance to do teacher groups and social workers and other educators, and sometimes we get a chance to work with law enforcement and do just go into companies. Different companies. Went into GE a few years back. We do workshops. We've done workshops on the University of Michigan campus as well as EMU. So we're kind of spread pretty thin. The early part of the school year, we went to Toledo, Ohio to do some workshops. So we get a chance to kind of get around to talk about cyber safety, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
So when you talk about the parent aspect of it, do you think about like blocking your kids from websites or monitoring what they're looking at?
Yeah, it's a combination of a lot of things. Carol and I were just talking about before we got here, and while we believe in those monitoring tools, using those filters and you know, to block certain content like things on YouTube, and listen to you ladies talk about your kids, well, your child being on YouTube, which is one of the parents' biggest fears, what to do to block out those contents on YouTube, or even just content on any other website on whatever device that they're using. But also having a good conversation with your child about being safe on the internet, the do's and don'ts, how to protect themselves. Sometimes just tell them, don't go to this website, it's not enough. You know, and explain to them how while they're here, the internet takes them everywhere else. You know, while our kids are in the family room playing the gaming console, if they're connecting with the live features, they're connecting to the world around them. It's bigger than what we think. And I think our concern is that when parents do buy the devices, and we don't try not to tell people how to parent, you know, what age to get their kids a phone or some other device. It's just that if you get it, think about how much access they have to various things, and think about those content filters and those parental controls. And even if you're not tech savvy, a lot of times the places where you've gone to, you purchase it from, they can help you. You know, or YouTube is good for that, those how-to videos.
YouTube can teach you anything.
They'll teach you. So we try to be a resource for them and helping them think about parenting in a digital age. Because it has changed, as you mentioned before, from when our parents were parenting us until now. Even when we were kids, it was different. Not all of us had cell phones at 8 years old or 10 years old.
I didn't have a cell phone until I started college. So.
Right.
Yeah.
And for most of us, that's how it is. But with the kids, they have the cell phone, they have a tablet, they have the iPod. If you have an iPod, you can turn that into a cell phone and texting, you know. So it's like having a phone, as long as they're connected to the internet. And they have the gaming consoles, and it's all great, and they're having a lot of fun, as they should. Technology is, we're not going to demonize technology because we use it on a daily basis, and we know how important that is, you know, in our society. And they do learn things. They learn certain skills. They learn a different style of communicating, and of course, like we said, using the word netiquette, how to behave themselves appropriately while they're using, you know, those social skills, developing that. So it's all a part of that, making sure they understand, and parents, helping parents to filter through all of those things and not feel, I think sometimes parents get a little intimidated, you know, to think about setting parental controls. It's going to take me an hour to do it. It's like seconds. And once you get into it, you're like, oh, that's all I had to do, bam, 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 you're done. So just taking away that fear, you know, just digging in there and getting it done. So
I did like how you said, let's not demonize technology, because
Yes.
I mean, my daughter's just shy of 2. She uses a tablet. My phone is more for like, she wants to look at pictures of herself and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But I also am under the impression that if I don't allow her to do these things, even at a super young age like that, she's going to be behind, because
Right.
the more you use technology, the more savvy you are at
Yeah.
it. And as time goes on, technology is just going to keep growing and growing, and she needs to be able to grow with technology.
grow with it and learn to use it responsibly.
Yes.
That it's not a weapon. It's, you know, and understanding what your rules are. You know, setting those parental rules. Carol and I often talk about how we manage things. You know, for me, it was like, you know, you turn your cell phone in at a certain time. As I said, my kids are older than your kids. You turn your cell phone in at a certain time, you turn technology off by a certain time, putting those rules in place and setting those expectations and limits for them. They need that in all areas. So the same skills that we have in the real world, we're going to transfer them to using technology. You know, how to protect yourself, where are you going when you're on the information highway, basically, how to navigate the world of technology. So
We were talking earlier today about that, and we had a benefit this morning for our organization, and I was talking to a local school principal, and she was saying that the kindergartners in their district have online portfolios. And I thought, I didn't have an online portfolio until 3 years ago. And so it was really interesting to hear that. And so I think it's really important that we do understand our kids have to know how to use our technology, but it is taking the time to teach them how to use it in that appropriate way. And something that we were talking about with that earlier was that, you know, sitting down and learning the technology with them, and even using it as an opportunity to have them teach you, and then it kind of gives them a special role as the child to be the teacher, showing you how to use it, and then creating those guidelines of saying, you know, if you're using technology, like these are the places that you can go online, and this is why, and you know, we're not going to be on our phones at dinner table. And then the hard part sometimes that we were talking about is then, you know, if you have those guidelines, like no phones in your bedroom, no phones at the dinner table, as parents, we have to follow those rules too. Because if we say something, they hear the words, but we have to show them. Because if, you know, we're at the table on our phones, they see that action and that's what they hold on to. So then they're going to follow suit with that. So creating those boundaries and those limits for the family and then following through is really powerful.
Well, and I'm sure it's also nice to have those times where nobody's on their phones. It might be something you're not thinking about until it starts happening, but even as an adult, you're just more present at dinner time if your phone's not by you.
Right, absolutely.
now, I was going to say, Carol mentioned that the kids have online profiles, and I'm not sure what type of profiles they have. But we do know, even at the elementary school age, I said that we were going in 3rd grade, starting at 3rd grade. They have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat. So they're running to a higher level of content than they should at their developmental age. So it is very, very important that parents understand what the kids are using and checking their devices, checking behind them to see where they're going on the internet. And even if they know they have these profiles, because some parents do know that their kids have Snapchat, monitoring that, making sure that someone's not making contact with them on Snapchat, that they don't want them to, that they're not communicating with someone, with a stranger online, someone who would bring hurt or harm to them. We often talk about a case that happened in Detroit, a young lady on the website, and a predator convinced her to do some unsavory things, you know, and it wasn't until the parent checked that she found out that this was happening with her child, and this is a 7-year-old. So when we're talking to parents, that protection is very, very important. When you put that device in their hand, you open them up to a big world, a world that you didn't even think was out there, basically, or as an adult, you know it's out there, but you didn't think it was going to come to your kids so quickly. So when we think about young kids being on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, it kind of frightens us. Because we know that the content.
That you're saying that like a 7-year-old would have social media, because I think that's completely unnecessary at that age.
Well, and there's, you know, the Child Protection Act suggests that children under the age of 13 should not be on social media. That said, we go into the schools and we ask the questions and the hands go up. And, you know, like that's a choice between the child and the parent. But I think that if that's a choice that you make, understanding that there can be a lot that they see. You know, they put in hashtag and then, you know, fill in the blank, and they can find a number of topics that as a parent myself, honestly, like I wouldn't even thought to look up. And so it's just kind of following up with them, and I think starting, you know, we're talking about all of this, like following up with them and knowing where they're at, and it starts with that initial conversation when they're like 6, 7, 8 years old, where you talk about the safety involved, the safety necessary when using the internet, and the importance of having that open communication, so that if, you know, 5 years later they find something or they're being bullied online, that door is open and they come to you as a resource and that they can get help.
So definitely a thing to say is have that conversation early and often.
Yes.
We are actually going to take a very short break, and we'll be back with more on cybersecurity. We're back with Carol Matthews and Robin Batten, and we left off with, you know, having that conversation with the kids. But what is the conversation? How does the conversation really, how should it go?
Well, it depends on, you know, the child and what they're using, how young you introduce technology to them, you know, and if they're very young, you should have it, like you said, early and often. And even if they're older, you know, there's a whole push to wait until 8th grade, and I believe that that's a good age to start, but that's just my own personal belief. You know, everybody's different. However, what it should go is talking about, hey, you know, I'm allowing you to have this phone. Now, there's a lot of stuff on here, just talking about the consequences of responsibility of having it and how you want them to be safe, and understanding that, and for me as a parent, understanding that, yeah, I brought you this device, but I can take it. And I know sometimes people may not like to hear that, but for me, if I'm paying for it, I'm going to check it. I want to check it, maybe not as often as they think, but it will be random. And when I ask for it, I expect you to give it to me.
And they should be thinking that you could be checking it at
any
all
time.
times.
And there's other ways of checking. You know, there's certain apps and things of that nature you can use where to let you know how many text messages they've sent, how many phone calls. If they got a phone call from what may be a strange number, which I really like. If it's coming too many times, let's say if Kara was texting me a lot, within an hour, it would say this is a strange caller, you know, if I'm not responding to her, you know, and it'll do the same thing for your kids' phone. So having those apps and things of that nature and letting them know that it's there, because they have to set it up on both phones at the same time. So letting them know that it's there and tell them that, you know, it's a huge responsibility. Letting them know what's out there, you know, that there are people out there who may mean you some harm. You have to be careful about bullying. You can't say anything that you want to say to people, and that they should be respectful and kind. I think teaching that too is very, very important, because once they get on the internet, it's like all of that teaching just disappears for them, and they're just in the moment with their buddies, seeing what their friends are doing online as they're connecting, and they just start to participate. So I think letting them know not to participate, don't follow the crowd. You know, don't give in to the online drama. You know, a lot of teenage girls are evaluating themselves based on social media, you know, what they're seeing, you know, what's the latest trend in beauty, or what is the standard of beauty, and they're rating themselves, and their self-esteem is dropping. So talking to them about that and building their esteem, to me, is also very, very important. We work with a lot of young girls, and we come back to the office and we're like, oh my God, what are we going to do? How do we help this kid get past all of that?
I'm sure it's all like how many likes they're getting on a photo.
Yes.
You know, like that sort of stuff has to hurt self-esteem too, in ways that we probably didn't understand, because by the time we got on social media, we didn't really care. You know, it wasn't a popularity contest anymore. It was just to connect with people that you hadn't seen in a while, or your family, and share pictures and stuff like that.
Our two biggest conversations, when you say Carol, is mainly bullying and sexting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of questions, a lot of incidents of it, and our goal is, of course, is to decrease the occurrence of all of those things from happening. Because once, if they send a sexting picture, the bullying happens. You know, and then if she gets bullied here, she's getting bullied in another place online. So, which creates a very scary situation for parents to have to deal with, and think that their child could be bullied, because now you're feeling like, what did I do? What could I have done to help this child, my child, not to be bullied or to get involved in a sexting situation? You know, how can I protect? How can I get them past that? A lot of parents are very, very concerned about bullying and sexting and a whole lot of other issues. But, you know, as a parent myself, I know that those are real concerns, and I've gone through those teenage years. But you talk to them. You talk to them often. Even when they pull away, just still talk to them and explain to them, I'm not here to make you uncomfortable. I don't want to have this conversation with you.
I'm sure the sexting conversation is very uncomfortable.
Oh, it is, it is. But, you know, I don't want to have that conversation on the other side either, of trouble. So as your parent, you know, I always say it's my responsibility to keep you safe and to make sure that you are educated, that you know what to do. That's our job, and explain your job to them and let them know I'm not trying to, you know, hoover over you, be the helicopter, but maybe I am, but, you know, and maybe that's the way it's coming off, but your goal is to protect your kid, and you love them, and you want to give them the best that you can, you know, with what you know how, so.
I think, too, I noticed that when we talk to the students of all the different age groups, that when we start talking about those uncomfortable conversations, that, like, even I do this for my job, but as a parent, when they come up, I always get like, oh God, and I take a breath and I find the words, but when I go into the school, it's different, and we start talking about these uncomfortable conversations, and I see the kids, like, take a sigh of relief. Because we say the word, we're going to talk about sexting, and they all get uncomfortable, but then we answer their questions. Like, these are things that they have that are happening in their lives, like bullying and digital drama and sexting and all this stuff, and they feel like they have to, like, hold on to it, and there's that kind of, like, for me, it's that visual of, like, and when we give it words and we give them a space to let that stuff out, there's such freedom in that. And so it's, you know, as a parent, it helps me remember, like, even if it feels uncomfortable, just to, like, have the dialogue, to, like, let the words come out, so that he doesn't have to carry around all of that tension, and that he knows that he has a space where he can go to talk about it when it does come up for him, because it will.
I mean, the sexting thing almost seems like an epidemic at this point. Like, everyone does it at some point.
1 in 4 middle school students receives a sex message.
Which seems very young.
That is very young, and very young to be exposed like that and trying to handle it. It's very hard. You know, we see young ladies, and it's primarily young ladies who fall victim, I hate to say this, to the bullying and having to change schools and trying to live that down. You know, and I agree with Carol that having that conversation with them in the classroom, it is kind of like a weight off their shoulders, because they're able to speak freely about it. And we allow them time to brainstorm first, and then we talk to them about it. And I think it helps them to kind of filter through. So if they face a situation of bullying or sexting, or even an online predator contacting them, that they will have some tools to help them think through it. They're like, hey, you know, they may not remember our names. That lady said that I should, you know, I should block them, save the evidence, you know, report it to an adult, even when I think I'm going to get into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of them don't want to report because they think
They
if I
think
tell
they
my
did
mom and
something
dad,
wrong.
I am going
Right.
to be in trouble. They're going to take my devices, tell me to get off Snapchat, and I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want them telling me, they don't want the parents to get all excited about it, overreacting.
Mm-hmm.
So they won't tell us. But I think what Carol and I do in the classroom with them, it kind of helps them or give them permission to make that decision, or give them the tools to filter through, because they may know that there's report buttons on those sites, but they don't always use them.
Mm-hmm.
So we let them know it is absolutely okay to report that you're not a snitch or a tattletale. You know, that you're standing up for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and you're taking the power out of the bully's hand and putting it back into your own and getting control of your situation.
Mm-hmm.
But seek out an adult to get some extra help, because that's what they're there for. That's what the adults in your world are there for. They may not be happy or comfortable with what you're going to share with them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, you really just want to be able to help them
You-
out of
yes,
the situation.
Yeah, and you want to protect them, and the trouble that they think they're going to be in is not real. It's what they think within themselves,
Mhm.
because they're nervous. Well, I did this. I was talking to this guy. If she find out, then I'm going to get into trouble. But we try to make sure that they understand that parents are there to love you and to protect
Unconditionally.
you. Unconditionally. And they can't protect you if they don't know what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I think they kind of get it. At least some of them do. I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
You know, good conversation, I would say, when you say Carol.
Yeah, so it's a lot about just having open dialogue with
Yes.
your kids.
Yeah.
I think a mutual respect.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I recently had a situation with my son. He was a little addicted to the game situation. Like, you know, he'd get so many minutes, and when it was done, he would be devastated that it was over. And so we talked about it, and he said, you know, and I had the feeling of like, these are our boundaries. And when I opened it up and let it be like, well, why do you feel that way? It was the mutual respect of like, so what do you need? And this is what I need. And then we came to a solution together that we're all really happy with within our home. But like, had I just kind of been like, well, I'm the mom, you know, but it was the mutual respect of like, I see you're upset. Tell me about that. And like, how can we meet that need? You know, and having that now at his age, I hope will carry through to when he's an adult. And then, you know, we're having issues with maybe bullying or cell phones and that kind of thing, that it'll be that same dialogue of respect.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for coming on the show.
Thanks for
Thank you so
inviting
much for having us.
Yeah.
If you have an idea for a parenting show topic or guest, talk to us on Twitter and Facebook at #CTN Ann Arbor.
For more on programming and services available at CTN, visit a2gov.org/watchctn. Thanks for joining us on this adventure in parenthood.